Yeah, which is nice. So I thought you wouldn't mind that. So which workshop did you just have? The heart of a facilitator. Was it done by video? Was sure. Yeah. I'm sorry? Excellent. So you see that there's different roles, right? You as a trainer will need to have a facilitator working with you. And that's really important, especially if you have large numbers of people attending the training. It's just so much to, you have to have people marking the homework and all of that. Tell me, what did you take from the facilitator role? And even the heart of a facilitator, what did you get out of it? I'm sorry? Yeah. Nice and loud for everybody so they can hear. Do they need the microphone as well? Microphone for them? Okay, they'll find it. So I'd like all of you to share what you took from this last session, because this part is very important.
I was saying so much depends on the facilitator in terms of the whole training working out, because the facilitators, they're like the spokes and of the whole system and the connection, and the ones who ensure the working of the system. So I think it's crucial that we be careful who we choose as a facilitator, because if they fail, then the whole thing can may collapse. Okay.
Yeah, as a trainer or speaker, you're really relying on the facilitator, big time. You're totally dependent on them to be kind of giving instructions, administrating literally the training. Is so important. So you're going to say something, Pastor Lewis?
Yeah, just in line with what you said, I noticed the facilitator is like the hub of the entire training process, and must be someone who is highly reliable, because if there should be any dysfunction in the role or the implementation of the facilitator's duty, a lot might go wrong. And the success of the entire training is highly tied to the perfect execution of the roles of the facilitator.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope I'm permitted to speak, because for me, I learned how important the facilitator has to be flexible.
Wow.
Flexible enough to
Very good
meet
conclusion.
the need of each participant, because the teacher in the video talked about so many examples of students that would come with special needs, the elderly, and so ranging from assignments to the special needs to the breaking points, we have to be observant and flexible enough not to be rigid with what the training is about or written,
Excellent.
but the end goal, which is to get every student to the point of absorbing what is being taught or what should impact them in the HMT.
Boy, you are smart.
Oh, thank you.
You are smart. Because what she just said is so key there. It's being flexible enough to make sure that that participant reaches the goal. That's the point. It's like not to use the law to beat people just for the sake of we're here to correct people, but to try to see the participant through to the end goal. You know, that's the best definition of how a facilitator should operate, is trying to help the participants to succeed and to get through it. So, brilliant conclusion. Lola.
Yes. Truth must be told, I am like a snail. I am sort of slow, in the process of learning new things, but I catch up. I still don't understand what my role is as a trainer. I'm not able to navigate who I am in the process. I'm sort of like lost in the process. Yeah.
Sorry, you didn't say.
Host, the trainer. I'm not sure where we are.
Do you have, and maybe Philip can help with this as well, they have the notes that explain the definition of a facilitator? Yes. Maybe we should refer to those now and make sure it's clear for everybody.
So the difference between a facilitator and a coordinator, right?
No. Trainer. Yeah, that kind of.
Now, he took you through the coordinator role, right?
Yes, we understand. Well, I understand that.
So you
part.
understand the coordinator is leading up to the training,
Yes.
which a facilitator could do too if you're using one person for both roles. Those are really just two functions that can be fulfilled by one person or two people.
Okay.
But the facilitator is the on-site. We would maybe use the word administrator of the training, like Babu Shaya. It would be like a facilitator, or Philip is facilitating this training. You see, I'm not here all the time.
Yeah.
He's here making sure everything is so that as a trainer, I can focus on what I need to focus on. But give some more clarity maybe if it's not understood.
I think that was pretty clear, but I'll try to expound on the facilitator portion. So, again, yesterday I mentioned the facilitator being somebody like, for example, myself. I'll check in with you to see how you're doing. I'll check in with Babashaya to see, is the little lunch be ready on time. I'll check in with Babashaya to make sure that you guys know where you're supposed to be as well. So again, I'm just making sure that behind the scenes, everything is taken care of, so when Asher comes, you can just deliver. Now, you as the trainers, you're not facilitators. You'll be the trainers themselves. You will have a facilitator who's doing what I'm doing, taking care of the background items.
A co-leader, or as we would say, the administrator of the training, they give the information on opening night, the details. You're just speaking on opening night, and then they would come and maybe at the end of one of your sessions, they would come and close it up and say, now we're going to have lunch from this time to that time. Is that a bit clearer? Yeah. Please make a note, Philip, that it wasn't clear for them, because I think we need to make that clearer somehow. They should know that at this stage in this training.
Yeah.
Or are you still having another workshop on facilitating? Is there a...
No, but I think the word administration will be put into the title of the facilitator.
Yeah, would that make it easier for you? Because you're probably thinking facilitator is somebody facilitating the training and speaking. It's probably wording. Yeah, good. All right, what else did you get from this last session? Yes, Suzanne. Microphone, there we go.
It was the one Bible verse, Proverbs 27 and 23. Know your sheep, and you should be like going around so much that you know the people and what they need, and even be ready to leave those 99 and go for the one who is like breaking down. Yes, and also to notice that there can be elderly people and people with medication, and they are not maybe meant to be pressed so much, so that they can have homework that are modified for them.
Very good. Excellent. All right, who hasn't shared their conclusion from this session? Maybe we can just go around the room like that and then circle over here.
Okay, what I got from this is that you need to be able to connect with the people. You need to connect. You are like the connection for between the students, the speaker, the kitchen staff, everything. You are like the one moving in the circle. You'll be you're the center of everything. And I think there's so much work for a facilitator to do. you know, and that you need to, and the fact that you have to make sure that your schedule is totally clear because you are at the venue 24/7. It's like you come first and you're the last to leave,
Yeah.
you know. So it's quite too much. It's quite a number of work to do for a facilitator.
And we actually pay the facilitator out of what we make. We pay them something.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're taking up such time, you know, to be there working. So.
Okay.
Excellent. Who's next?
I guess the most important thing is the fact that the coordinator and the facilitator data switch can always interchange, just in case you don't have the right amount of people on site, or to be able to play different roles for you. And I think the video that Sharon did was a very detailed video.
Excellent.
You don't really need to do anything but just send the video to whoever is going to fill that role to just run with it, because she just went in proper detail to kind of like transfer the roles and responsibility of that, you know, coordinator role.
Excellent.
So it just makes it very easy to deliver the whole process and then just follow the schedule.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, going back, we have to go, like, you know, when we get back to our basis, we need to go over the whole schedule over again and print the whole thing out
Yeah.
physically and actually own it and walk through the whole document page by page. So like we know each and every inch of the document that's needed and, you know, where it needs to be plugged into.
That's a great conclusion, to know the whole thing. Because you've got it as part of you've got it right there. I'm assuming you received it. All right. Who's next who hasn't shared? Maybe we'll jump over here to this section. What you took from the facilitator thing.
I think for me, I see the facilitator as the oil the whole engine runs on, you know, because I'm beginning to think they even have a more important role than the trainer himself, because, you know, they sort of coordinate everything just to make sure the whole training runs successfully, you know. So, I'm realizing it's a big responsibility. So in choosing who you want to be your facilitator, you really need to be a bit careful to choose well, because they could either make or unbreak the whole training program.
You need the right person, somebody who's administrative and is able to hold up the whole thing. So you'll be at your best then. You'll be able to focus on what you're to focus on, the training and working with those people, when you have somebody good that's working with you. So thank you, Josephine. Or whoever else has a share.
I also picked up what Sharon was sharing about the preparation as well, and I think what I picked up. She talked about two aspects of preparation: spiritually and mentally, and what you talked about prayer and fasting, because of this is, and how when you get there you will notice people maybe who are sad, and then she was saying that it's sometimes a revelation of the clash of the kingdoms, and that prayer that you've prayed before, and having a prayer team praying for you. It avails the grace to be able to help to break through that. And I thought that was very powerful, because it's not just an ordinary workshop, it's an encounter. So you need to be prepared. And also what she mentioned was about mentally being prepared, and talking about that will be, manifested in you being able to see things. And those things can be indicators of what's going on spiritually, being able to recognize those who are sad, those who are whatever, and you yourself must be able to be, have the grace to cover them in love, cover them in prayer, maybe even take them outside. So I like that aspect, because of, often we don't want people to go out there so it was some kind of an academic thing. There's a spiritual aspect to it, but then you need to also be able to know when that happens, it will need prayer, it will need maybe guidance, that I sit with this one who's a bit slow, then I'll go through with them. So you'll be able to know what sort of help you can give to the students.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes, I also got from Sharon about working with the volunteers, and she talked about how to send emails to the volunteers every day on everything that was going on. And I also liked the fact, too, that she talked about even after the training was over, she still gets feedbacks from her volunteers. She wanted to know, what did they observe, what happened behind the scene, and so that's the way that they will evaluate and just know how effective the volunteers were and how observant, they were to the needs of the students. So I found that to be very, very good, that even after it ended, there was a kind of evaluation of the volunteers.
Wow.
Yeah, I really like that fact.
So do you think that video is really good for this Train the Trainers program? It's good to have that video? Yeah. Anastasia, did you want to say anything before we send the mic back there? And Philip want to say something too? Can you get my yellow towel from my room, please?
Okay. Sorry. Sharon was talking about serving, the service that a facilitator must give the service to people. And as a facilitator, like when we want to organize, for example, like a HMC meeting, there is a specific topic for that. So people want to see that message inside of you. So they are waiting for that you that they don't know to be impacting in their life in other ways. So you are serving them something that at least they came for the topic because maybe the topic was attracting, like they wanted to know about it, and now they want to see it on you and go out and live with also. So the place that she's talking about, the service of the you that people don't know, that was what got my whole attention of the facilitator. So as a facilitator, you need to build yourself in the content that everything will come out from out, like inside out, so that the message
So
would
the
be
facilitator has to have the spirit of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you all feel like you could find a facilitator to work with you? Do you all have somebody that you think you could work with you? Yeah? Yeah, you could prepare them to do it. That's great. Well, I think you're understanding. And any other questions related to the facilitator role? No? Yes, Laura. Oh, it got hot.
But I trying to vision what a day looks like. Do you have any tapes that shows a day? How does a day go right from the morning to the end of the day, especially when it comes to the homework part, the scoring. Like if we have volunteers, we need to know about how to score for the test. So that kind of information will we get?
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't seen that yet. Why haven't
No.
they?
We haven't actually. I'll go over that if you like when you're finished and we have extra time.
I think we should do it now. Maybe. Well,
We can do it.
maybe let's come back to it then, because we have the 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because they should be able to see what the whole. It's a good question she's asked. How are they marking? And because I'm going to talk to you about pressure points and the marking right now. I'd like them to actually read through the marking system.
Okay. So in the standard package, you'll see the marking rubric there.
Let's just go there right now. Let's do it. So you asked, how do they mark? What's the grid for marking? Let's do that right now. You can sit here if you want, Philip. Or we can give you the mic. Yeah, let's.
You see the marking guide there? It's in the HMT standard package. that too, but you'll see the marking guide. You'll see both the marking grid and the marking grid and marking guide. You can pull up both of them, but we're going to go over the marking guide first. Do you all have it? Yes, great. Okay, so you still, I guess, because we have the issue with you having a computer. Okay. Can you look over on theirs for now, please? Do you see the guide? Yeah, great. And there's also so there's a grid and a guide. I know it sounds familiar, but they're two different things. Okay, we're going to look at the guide right now. So History Makers Training is not an academic environment. We don't mark based on, grammar, punctuation, style. We don't do that. It's how you interact with the material. There's level of transparency. Transparency is very big when it comes to this, because unless you're transparent, you can't get down to what needs to change. So how are you going to change? So we're looking to see the heart of every student, of every participant, and that they not only understand the concepts and the things that are taught during the training, but how they interact with it. You can, because you can go to a sermon, you can hear a sermon, but unless you're interacting with it, you're not going to change. Right, so this is a training and it's different than a Sunday morning sermon. So it's important to tell students at the beginning that this is not an academic training, but more so a self-development, self-discovery, and see where their purpose is in the grand total or grand scheme of the beyond the four walls, God's kingdom. Many of them do feel that they're at a disadvantage because they didn't do well in school, and so you want to make sure you get that out of the way. Homework is a vital part of the success of the HMT process because this is what applies the pressure. It facilitates the activation of the teachings and gives the participants a chance to be able to work with it and to look at themselves through the filter and the lens of the homework. So, for example, one of the homework questions is, what is a son according to the Bible? What is a mature son? How is that defined? So not only do they they give you the definition based on the workshop teaching, but they also must interact with it in a way where this is what a son is, but how do I compare to that? Where am I at?
You all have the homework question.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe they haven't gone through the package yet.
No. Well, you've been through the HMT course, so you know about it, but all this is inside the standard package as I went over yesterday. But so again, I'm just going over the grading system right now. So as the homework, as you mark the homework, not you being the trainer, but the facilitator, they must be attentive to the processes of the participant. So what Sharon was talking about knowing each person by their name, you also have to get to know them by their homework. And be able to identify when they're making advances. Because everybody's different, right? So Susan's different than Josephine. If I see Susan, doing really well, let's say she only got like a very good, but then I see this big advancement in the next homework, I'm going to make sure I identify that and give her excellent. Now, if I see Josephine who's been getting excellent, and she just stays on that track, that's great and all, but I'm not going to really identify that. So I know each individual based on their homework and the processes that they're going through. As we continue on, again, I'm highlighting the main points of this. The marks of the homework should reflect their effort, their ability to personalize, and their journey of revelation. Being able to personalize it also means transparency. Transparency. Now, there are comments you put in the marking rubric. We will get there. The marking grid itself will get there. But we want to encourage people to go deeper, to push further. Number one, when you're marking comments, do it with an encouraging statement. Great job, very well done, super, things that you would see on a little kid's test almost. You want to encourage them. You want to give a suggestion. Number two, at that point. Number two, if you're following along on the marking grading system, is give them a brief suggestion of what they need to include in their next paper, their next homework assignment, what they need to include in their answers to improve. Number three, you can also use this section to edify and build up students who you know are struggling. And you see some examples there. There's greatness within you. It's a great one to use. Which number are we on now? 4, okay. Always end marking comments with an encouraging statement. So do you remember the sandwich illustration Pastor Derek gave yesterday? With the have one nice thing encouraging, give the meat, which is the constructive criticism, end it off with the encouraging statement. Yes, the bread. Okay, so if we continue, homework is graded on a system of perfect, excellent, very good, good and not well done. Not well done is a red dot based on what the trainer says it is. So if the person's not well done because they really are struggling, you're not really giving a red dot for that. But if it's not well done because you know they just put zero effort, it's an incomplete at that point. But incomplete is a red dot, as I mentioned earlier today. So marks are announced after each assignment deadline. We went over this yesterday. What time of the day is the morning homework due? Great. And what time is it due in the evening? And what time is the book due? Wonderful. Wonderful. So at the end of the training, one person will be selected as highest achiever. This person will be selected only because they've shown exemplary work in every assignment they have, not some, but every assignment. They will have proven that they understood what has been taught, demonstrated diligence in their answers. Way you can identify this is if if the question asks for, let's say, 5 examples to prove your point, this person goes and gives 6 or 7. And they do this consistently throughout their homework. So diligence in their answers, shown honesty and transparency. Like you will read some people's answer and it will be brutally honest and very transparent. And that's why we also tell them this is confidential. This is confidential. You're not telling your neighbor next day, oh, look what I read. This is a safe place. So we want to stress that as well. This is confidential. Yes.
So how do you determine between honest and non-truth now? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to determine that how would you be able to see that this person is being really honest? Do they give examples from their lives in order to?
That's a great question. How about we open up the homework booklet and we find a question for that? Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go.
Just whether, it doesn't want to be too complicated. It's whether the person is kind of being transparent. When we say honest, are they giving an example of their own life? Or are they sharing something that maybe, like when Nikki shared this morning? That's an honest, just tell. That's her own life right there, that she's put out there. So are they sharing from the heart? Is it coming from
Another one is, are they using I statements or you? As a son, you need to do this. As a mature son, you need to do this. Or as a mature son, I need to. That's another one. All right, and to continue on here. Those who have shown exceptional, who have proven their work, and have gone above and beyond what was required of them. Now what happens if you have me as a participant and I say to Susan, I don't think I should have gotten a very good. I think I should have received an excellent. What do you do then? They're allowed to dispute their marks. You're allowed to dispute your marks. Now, if it goes where it's almost taking over the workshop time, and just reuse the one-liners for time's sake, we can discuss this at break. But your facilitator, you as a trainer, you don't argue with them, you don't dispute with them their marks. They dispute with the person who marked it or the facilitator.
That's an important piece right there. Is the trainer doesn't get involved in any dispute with marking because that's student relationship. It's better, just like a pastor has an administrator to handle some people who show up at the church, this is the same kind of thing. The facilitator is the one that is disputing those marks and looking at evidence.
So if you scroll down a little further, you will see the marking grid. It's also in this document. If you don't see it, just raise your hand so I know. Everybody's on the same page, great. So the marking grid here, section A talks about the evaluations and reflections. What it means with the reflections is sharing what they gained from the actual workshop. They're reflecting on the teaching. Showing the ability to personalize workshop material and teachings. They also demonstrate the ability to perform an honest self-analysis. This is when they're looking at their self-evaluation and or self-reflection. They base it on their past, present, and future. Bless you. They also achieve a level of transparency in relating to the application of the workshop teaching. So in the highlighted portion there, you'll see this is more lecture focused. Lecture focused. Do you know what I mean by lecture focused? This section of evaluations and reflection, this part of their answer is basically just focused on the lecture portion of the workshop. So it's the facts given. B is the identifications and realizations. This one's more personal focused. This is where they use the I statements. The revelation or understanding they receive for their life, the realizations of their responsibilities, and express desire to take action. Also, their ability to identify their needs, wants, desires, etc. for themselves, family, ministry. You'll maybe read something that sounds like, this is where I was in my life, but I want more. And here, based on the revelation of me becoming, let's say, for example, a mature son or daughter, I know now that I have to read or listen to sermons that pastor preached 4 to 7 times to make it flesh so that I can show up in my family a different way. Conclusions and decisions. If you heard, is this, I'll give you an example. Where are they at now where they want to be? You heard that in my recent example. Ability to come to terms with vital changes and making necessary decisions to move forward. Again, this is transparent. They're being transparent here. And personal revelations and conclusions for their life. What they need to do. This is kind of the conclusion of the realization. What's the next step? D is a plan of action. Now that they understand what they have to do, how are they going to do it? So I know I have to become a mature son. How do I do that? Well, maybe you get a mentor. Maybe you start to listen to sermons more than once.
See how we're drawing out of them? One of the almost as important, maybe even more important than just hearing the lecture is the homework piece. When they write their homework and have that self-evaluation time and they're really going deep with it, that's what's pulling out of them. That is just absolutely vital for this training. I'll talk a bit
And that's very important. So the plan of action is what needs to happen. I need to listen to the sermon 4 to 7 times. But it doesn't stop there. The next part is the examples, scenarios, or illustrations they give to highlight their understanding, where they were in their life, or where they're going to go. And marks are only given when they have an illustration in this section. So if they don't have any illustrations, they don't get that, they lose out on the marks. So an illustration could be something like, or an example is, for example, I'm going to listen on my way to school. This is what I did. I'm going to listen to a sermon on the way to school. I'm going to listen to it on the way home for the whole week. So that's two trips, 5 days a week. That's 10 times I listen to that sermon. I did that and it works. Anybody have any concerns with that or questions? Okay. Scroll to the next page. Somebody read the title for me? All right, setting SMART goals. Now, SMART is an acronym. What is S? Somebody tell me what S stands for. Okay, great. And can you read that box right there as well?
Your goals, not your goals. Your goal should be as specific as possible and answer with excellence. What is your goal? How often or how much? Where will it take place?
That's right, specific. How, where, what? Answer those three. Measurable for M. How will they measure? Time. I will do this at this date. So it's measurable. Or sorry, that's actually the next one. So measurable could also be, for the example I gave when it came to listening to a sermon 4 to 7 times, it's measurable because I can measure how many times I did it. And if I say I want to do it in a week, that will get to the timely factor of this, the T. Now, attainable is the goal should push you, but are they achievable? So it's not some unrealistic goal where I have this huge thing in my head where I know I'll be able to accomplish. So I don't say I'm going to listen to the sermon, 1,000 times. I don't have the time of day to do that. I don't have 1,000 hours in a day. I only have 24. So attainable. Realistic? Is your goal or time frame realistic for the goal you have established? Yes. And timely. Do you have a time frame you want to complete this? Any questions about that? Okay. So if you see there are examples here, here's an example. Question, where do you waste time? How will you fix this situation? So number 1 highlights their evaluation. I spend a lot of time watching TV. They're specific about how much, 3 hours a day. And then they're on Facebook for 1 hour a day. So that's 4 hours wasted. Realization example, I could be using that time for something else like spending more time with God, my family, or working on my goals like business planning. For example, this is where they use examples and they're transparent. Last week, I had a business opportunity that I missed. Realization, I did not have time to prepare. Using my time better would have allowed me to become more prepared. Conclusion and decision, I need to change how I'm using my time. Great. How are they going to do this? 4 action plan. This participant would be able to go home at the end of the training with all of their homework typed up and composed so they can go back and review. They have a record of what needs to change in their life and they can be accountable to it. When I first did the HMC training and I got all my homework because I filed it and saved it on my computer, obviously, I gave it to my dad to read and he said that he wept. He said, wow, I really know my son now. He was surprised at what he didn't know. And I was surprised when I went back there. When the student is honest and transparent, you really get a look at how you're spending your life. What's more important in your life? And this is a full, by the completion of a 3-day HMC, you've got full evaluation of your life. So that's why this is so meticulous the way it is. Very important, a very vital piece that distinguishes an HMC training from going to church. You understand? Thank you. And so number 4 is the action plan. This is when they actually state what they're going to do, how many times they're going to do it. So I will wake up earlier to spend time with God. That just tells me what you want to do. It doesn't tell me what time. Earlier, if you slept until like 11 a.m., earlier could mean 10. It could mean 10:30, right? So what does earlier mean? It means I will set an alarm for 6 a.m. and pray and worship for an hour starting on Monday. So they state the day they're starting. Now I like to get a little more meticulous and say which Monday. Next Monday, put a date to it. I will reduce my TV time only to 1 hour a day, realistic. And I will spend 30 minutes with wife and family between 7 to 8 p.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays each week. So they're actually scheduling in time. They're making sure that only thing they're doing is spending time with their family. Their phone is off, everything is away. That time is dedicated to family. I know people who at 5 p.m., from 5 to 7 is only family time. They don't do any work at all, Monday to Friday. And so they again, because they have certain goals they want to meet. Next one is the general rules for marking assignments. Most important to see, number 1, all questions are answered thoroughly. So if, for example, if the question asks for 10 examples, make sure all 10 are there. So you can do a quick scan to make sure. If any questions are missed, no exceptional marks are given. I'll even go as far as to say is that's incomplete, and they get a red dot for that. So it can be perfect, but because they miss one, incomplete. But that's how it is in life. You can have an incredible business plan, but you miss up on one thing, and you can be audited by the government. And so, details. I've learned the hard way in this one. The name, number 2, is the name is on the document for each block. Not enough to have, it's not enough to have their name in the file or subject line of the email. If name is missing, no exceptional mark is given. So they don't get perfect. Own your work. Own what you do. Identify. Take responsibility. That's what your name is. Each answer begins with the question being asked. So do you know, back in elementary school, we had to write full sentences, which basically sentences that include the question asked. So I didn't like doing that when I was a kid. But again, no, if only part of the question is listed, but the marker is still able to follow the sentence easily or the sequence, then the partially written answers are acceptable and the participant will not be penalized. What that really means is if you know what question they're answering and they have it in their answer, the question, that's fine. Some people just will have the question above and right underneath. That's also acceptable. Another one is identify those who cut corners. It's very simple. You will tell. For example, let's use the whole sentence. For example, if I have only written, to become a son, I must do this. And I just do point form, and then I move on to the next question without even identifying what I'm answering. That's cutting corners.
That you'll find is one of the biggest issues in Christianity today. Every training we do, you will find most believers are corner cutters. And it's really a slave mentality, which is I will do the least amount of work possible but want the maximum result. Rather than a son does the maximum amount of effort to please the Father.
Speaking about effort, we're going to go a little more into the marking grade categories. So category A, somebody can you read under that what it says about category A? Starts off with depth. Nice and loud, yeah, just go for it. And what are the three main, I guess you could say, breakdowns of those? What is understanding? Yes.
Participants exhibit they have carefully listened to and digested the lecture material and arrived at the necessity to take personal responsibility.
Comprehension?
Comprehension is based on the lecture material. Participants prove they have grasped the knowledge of concepts presented and are able to interact with those concepts and communicate them effectively.
And consistency.
All answers or responses have the same flow, quality, effort, and layout.
Thank you very much, Josephine. Category B, interaction with material. Again, vulnerability and transparency in areas of self-analysis. Self-analysis. You're not analyzing somebody else, or you're not analyzing the lecture material. The participants aren't writing a sermon. I've read some of those before, and it's usually from pastors. They'll go on to a long, drawn sermon. We didn't ask for that. Yes. And so, again, they're just being concise in areas of vulnerability and transparency. So in their responses, the participants have personalized the lecture material and self-evaluation assignments and how each affects their current experience and situation. This means I statements. I'm going to stress this out. It has to be I statements, because unless we look at ourselves, we can't change. Participants use personal illustrations and examples to illustrate this interaction. Participants also reveal they grasp the importance of being real with themselves and therefore choose to go deep to get the necessary result. They even go as so deep sometimes where we offer the option where we say, okay, men, if you only want a male to mark your homework questions, let us know, we'll provide that for you. Females, if you only want a female to mark your homework, let us know, we'll provide that for you, because of how transparent you want to be.
You might not have the people resource to do that.
That's
So
normal.
I wouldn't say that it's mandatory. I'm amazed that we do that. Probably because Sharon has collected so many volunteers
Yeah.
over the years, but I don't think that's so necessary.
No. Category C, based on decisions that they make, on the new information they're learning, the participants have demonstrated through their assignments that they have arrived at a point of change and made personal conclusions towards a growth plan and implementing those changes. This is what Pastor Derek was talking about, that when they get home, they have something to refer back to. It's literally a change, a behavior change plan they have when they're done. And it's incredible the change you see. D, organization, layout, and formatting. It is based on the presentation and design of the assignment. The plan of action refers to the SMART goal section that we described above. Students need to, 1, identifying the need for change and the required action for that change. So what is the need? What is the solution? Demonstrate ability to create a system or plan of action. A system or plan of action. So I will start Mondays at 6 a.m. For 1 hour, I will do this. And I will do this 5 days a week. And they set timelines or realistic goals for implementing that change. Category E is example scenarios or illustrations. Students must include or incorporate personal examples, real-life scenarios, and or creative illustrations, usually from their life, into each of their answers. The reason for this is because what you have the students do is reflect on a point or an event in their life that is an example of the issue that they're having. And when they can refer to that, it's seen as a problem. That event, there was a problem. But now they have the solution for that problem. So psychologically, they're going back in time to solve their problem, so that when they leave the training, they have the solution that they can go forward with. Do you understand? Self-evaluation questions. Number one, a true self-evaluation is make sure they're specifically answering each evaluation question. Make note if they are avoiding the analysis and giving surface or fluffy responses, or list one-word responses or minimal. Use discretion based on the type of question. I've come across some answers before in marking homework where it's one word. And I can tell this person does not want to be at the H&T anymore. I can tell. Or they're resisting the training altogether. They're just there, they just want to get through it. That's an incomplete to me because they're not actually trying at all. There's also some, I'll give you another example, answers I've read where it will say, for the answer, underneath the question, refer to the answer above. That's cutting corners. So there's that. All right, so now, when the questions call for it, number 2, they must have a decision, show a point of change. Number 3 is change in actions that they're going to make to ensure they follow through on their decision. So maybe they include a accountability partner. Now, when it comes to lecture-based questions, notice how we're being so detailed right now with this? When it comes to lecture-based questions, they can summarize or list what they learned from the teaching. Summaries must include key points from the actual teachings. For example, the factors of success, Pastor Derek mentions 3 factors of success. An environment, character, and knowledge, correct. But he also lists other factors of success. They should be mentioning these as well. One of the ones he does mention is pressure and pain. If they don't do this, don't assign full marks in category A. Maybe you assign out of 5 marks that they can have, you assign 4 if they miss one. Number 2, the revelation or understanding they got for their life based on this teaching, i.e., where are they at now? And what do they need to do based on the teaching that they just received? What do they need to do in order to change? For example, in Sowing Seeds of Sun, I learned that sons take responsibility. After hearing this message, I realized there are areas of my life where I need to take responsibility for what God has called me to do. Conclusion. Number 3, A, the decision, the point of change. B, and there's 2 parts of a conclusion. A is the point of change. B is the change they're going to make to ensure that they are applying new understanding they received. So, action plan. Here are some standard marking comments. You'll see a overall mark descriptor. And so how to use these, again, this is the way we mark at home. How to use these is, number 1, you pick one-word descriptors or short phrases that best suits the overall mark and or feel of the homework submitted from the participant. 2, select the long phrases that describes 1, the effort applied, 2, the area of improvement required for the participant to go to the next level, and 3, the encouragement needed to lead them towards greater effort or excellence. This is so meticulous. So an overall mark descriptor you have in terms of if somebody gets perfect is wow, amazing, exceptional, excellent. If they have very good, you put that, you're off to a strong start, way to go. Keep pressing in, you hear that a lot. And good is good effort, good job. Keep moving forward. So encouraging. When it comes to detailed comments, make it personal. If you want to encourage them to add more personal examples, make your comments personal.
You'll be teaching this to graduates maybe assisting you. Sometimes we have people marking from a distance because somebody can just email.
Mm-hmm.
We can just email the homework, so somebody can just mark it from a distance and send it back. Or you have 1 or 2 people on site that are able to mark it.
So when it comes to make it personal, you'll see the points and those are things you can copy and paste over into their marking grid, is one is you've scratched the surface, include personal examples that will allow you to go a bit deeper. So Sharon here has literally laid out for your facilitator that they just have to copy and paste according to the overall feel. So if they want to encourage them to add specific time and dates, you might want to choose one of the 3-point form here, which is you have great answers, very detailed. See if you can give the same depth in a more concise way to give yourself time to complete the answers with the same consistency. Maybe you'll put that remark there if you notice that there is no consistency. Number 3 is action plan. If you want to help or emphasize the person needs to add more action plans to their homework, then you can choose one of these 3 as great plan of action, take it to the next level by adding dates. Always encouraging them to go further, always encouraging them to move from glory to glory. Number 4 is exceptional effort. Is, you have taken great strides since your last homework, great improvement. So it's encouraging. 5 is when the actual encouragement is happening, is do not give up. You're doing really well. I can see that you're putting in good effort, but believe there is more. You are doing so good, keep going. So it's that extra push. You give these comments, especially to people you see struggling. It's a effort, it's encouragement, and it's saying, I see more in you, and if I can see it, I know you will be able to as well. Any questions on this?
A lot of thought goes into bringing the best out of
Does that answer your question in terms of how to do the homework? Well, I'm glad you answered that question.
Now, when you have your team or your facilitator or a couple people marking the homework, depending on how many people you have in the group, it can take quite a while. Now, I don't know if this is a new included when Sharon was so fast. She just recently created one that's a lot faster. It's not that one, but it's sent to you. But the idea is to be able to give the results back publicly to the to the group prior to the first workshop of the morning or the first workshop of the evening. If you find you run into not being able to do that in time, we just hand it out and we give it out in between the 2 workshops of the morning. So there's a break and we just deliver it and then we take a break. Or after the break, we deliver it, announce, everybody claps for the person, that kind of thing, and we do it that way as well.
When you say you give back, do you give the whole script or you just give a summary? Like,
Oh.
say, the whole script that I give back, just a general overview about the actual script and that.
You give back this marking rubric for each homework, and then you can put in, for the comments below, you put in those lines. Okay? Any other questions? Yes.
Is there any benefit in announcing that so everyone could hear? Because the different kinds of people, do we feel that there's different benefits in doing so?
Yeah, there is.
It's, you would think that people would be terribly afraid that something would go wrong with doing that, and we found that there's some camaraderie that begins with the people all going through it together. And the announcement of marks becomes actually one of the most exciting times. Right? They actually look forward to it because, you're announced in front of your peers. It's good next time. You're announced as very good and even better. And the whole group sees these people who came in really struggling and then beginning to move up. Now, the people that get a red dot or something, I'm sure it stings a little bit. And I'm going to talk about that with you now, maybe. Because I don't think we're going to go through the full schedule of a typical day. But it's in there.
The full schedule of a typical day? We went through that already. That was the facilitator's portion. That was the schedule we went through, the detail, but the 9 o'clock starts here, 9 to 9:30 is the opening forum, and we went through that. Actually, of all 3 days. So,
Oh, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the marking. How am I doing here? Somebody made an interesting comment to me during this training here. I noticed myself begin to underachieve, where when there was a red dot pressure applied, oh boy, you wanted to finish that assignment. You wanted to get that thing in time. And this is actually real life. This is how life is. In university, if you miss handing in that assignment by a certain amount of time, or if you miss that business opportunity, you lose. That's the real world. If you miscalculate, if you, like Philip was saying, if you know, it can mean an audit on your, your taxes. It can mean your insurance goes up. Life is filled with red dots. We changed the terminology from red dot to pressure point. And you'll hear a message during this training called Simulating Points of Pressure for High Performance Christianity. Let me say that again. What a title, eh? Simulating points of pressure. So we're creating opportunities for pressure to produce high-performance Christianity, not lazy Christianity. Christians who are the elite. Christians who are excellent in spiritual things and excellent in the natural realm. Believers who are like the Daniels and the Josephs, the elites of society. That's our goal. And to do that, you have to, for people to be trained, they have to learn endurance. And to learn endurance, you have to endure pressure. You need some kind of resistance. So we actually, the red dot system is one of the most profound things I've ever seen brought to the church. Because when do you show up for church? You show up on time? Really? Are there any pastors in the house? Do your people show up on time? Yeah. Well, good. You have figured something out then. But, in the Christian world, we'll say things like, when the Lord wills, I will do this. Or by His grace, or, in whatever will be, que sera, sera. This has soaked the fabric of Christianity more than you realize. And it comes out in these trainings. These trainings just bring it right out of everybody. This kind of, I'll show up when I want, I'll go when I want, and you offer something that requires effort. And the problem with that is that as long as you remain within the four walls of the church, you're good. Comfortable Christianity, waiting room, padded benches, coffee, whatever, nice life. But when you venture out there to bring transformation, you will face the powers of hell, you will face the powers of government, you will face all kinds of things that are hammering against you. And we discovered this because when I learned that it was required, to go beyond the four walls, you needed to build systems, you needed to start social programs, you needed to create projects. I created all these projects and began assigning them to leaders who I thought were leaders because they were so good in church. And then when they went out there with the single mother program, when they went out there with the homeless program, all of a sudden, all four of our projects, the leaders quit within a year. It was either, the one reason was, well, our kids Monday night have gymnastics, Tuesday night is swimming, Wednesday night is youth group, Thursday night is this, Friday night is it. They just didn't have the time to reach people. They were just too much in church. And they returned to their comfort zone. Then you had the person who went out there, and as soon as they got out there to do the work of the ministry, Satan came and just almost obliterated their marriage and their They just were hit with depression, hit with all this stuff because they weren't properly trained. They were fine as long as they were in church setting, comfort zone. They couldn't, the bottom line is they couldn't handle the pressure. Then you have the people, oh Lord, the people that come and say, they meet with you, you know, and they say, Pastor, I feel God is calling me to just rest in His presence right now. I'm wanting to hand over my project. God is calling us to just sit. We just want to sit. And I said, well, 2 weeks ago, God was telling you to do this. You had a dream, a bird flew by your window, and there was this sign, and now God is schizophrenic. He's changed His mind. And I remember where I was, with my head in my hands like this at my desk. You know, pastor of a 1,000-member church, okay? So I had lots of people to choose from. And I sat with my head in my hands and I said, if this is the best we have, no wonder we aren't changing the world. Here we have people resource, we have financial resource, we're a big church. We have, I handed people ready-made projects, and that was the problem. These people were not trained and equipped. They had never endured pressure, so they just weren't ready for it. And you have the frog example, if you or a grasshopper or any kind of insect or animal, if you take a burning stick and begin to put it near that frog, the frog that didn't jump for the last 10 minutes suddenly is going to jump back. And it's a natural reaction of self-preservation. I'm telling you, our churches have created a very negative default of self-preservation within our believers. HMT is designed to push them to where they're leveraging pain, discomfort, pressure. They start to embrace that. They see that that's bringing the best out of them. They're saying, hey, bring it on. And when they learn to navigate through that, they get what athletes know and Navy SEALs know. And they call it uncomfortably comfortable. That's what an athlete will say. They know the power of pressure. Pressure is now their friend because it's pulling something out of them that comfort does not. Be very suspicious of comfort. Even blessing. Pressure will do what blessing cannot do in your life. Pressure is a blessing. And you know Pastor Sunday teaches this. You understand this. So HMT is designed to do that. So one of the greatest ways we discovered, or Pastor Sunday discovered, how to apply the necessary pressure to push them was not only is it 3.5 days long with very minimal breaks. That in itself was pressure. But now there's also homework assignments. Man, when I arrived and took the training, I thought, homework in church? I remember one woman said to Pastor Sunday, I'm sorry to say, this is what she said. She said, you've turned the house of God into a military boot camp. You know what Pastor Sunday's response was? It was priceless. He said, if you can't handle the pressure of 3 days of self-discipline, how will you handle the pressure of the warfare of trying to take a nation? He's living it. You know, I was the only one allowed to go with him to the police station when it was assured he would be thrown in prison. It was myself, Svetlana, and the driver and one security. And the other two guys had already been invited with the same invitation, papers signed, and when they went to the station, they were thrown in prison. They might even be in prison right now. Totally unlawful. Against the Ukrainian constitution. And Pastor Sunday's name was the last to be called. Somebody even phoned. I was here at the time and said, the papers have been signed. You're going to prison. And I remember that night, some people came and gathered, and we had watermelon, and we fellowshiped together, and Pastor Sunday and everyone, we were looking at pictures of his wedding and pictures of his childhood, and there was this, I'll never forget walking in the room, there was this kind of ominous, like, is this it? Like, this is the end here, you know? And he was the same. I'll tell you, if I was facing 12 years imprisonment, the night before I would not be hanging out with you. I would be curled up. Maybe you wouldn't, but I'd be curled up in the fetal position in a room somewhere, crying and counting my life before my eyes. Maybe you wouldn't. I probably would. A Ukrainian prison? As a black man? You know where that's going. And I remember that awful night, and I was here on my, well, I won't get into that, but the next day was the morning to go. And so I was waiting for him, and people were waiting out here, and they were crying. You didn't know this all went on. I was here for this. They were crying. Pastor Natasha was here, all the, Apostolic Council. And Pastor Sunday came downstairs, fresh and ready, in a jumper outfit in case he was going to be locked up for a lengthened period of time. And he had slept 2 hours, and Pastor Bose said she had to wake him up because it was like, if this might be the last night that you're sleeping in your bed, you're sleeping with your family. And he came downstairs and jumped into the car, and I got into the vehicle. And as the car went to pull away, he noticed people were crying and waving. Like, guys, this was a horrible experience. Like, I thought this was it. People were waving, and he yelled something to the driver. And the van lurched to a stop, and Svetlana's translating for me, and he gets out and stands at the edge of the van there like this. And I'm telling you, he preached the greatest faith message in 7 minutes I had ever heard. 7-minute faith message on faith as a shield, and yelled at everybody for allowing fear on his property. I thought, what kind of nerves of steel this guy must have. And he didn't know anything that no one else didn't know. This was it. And we pulled away, and he sat back down in the chair and looked at me like this and went, and then he went to sleep. We arrive at the police station, and he gets out, and there's no goodbyes. It's, I'm coming back. And he goes into the police station, and now we all sit and wait. I don't know how long I sat in that vehicle. And by then, another car had come, and it was Bishop Anatoly and his wife, and they came and got into our vehicle, and we just sat there. And then, I don't know how much time passed, all of a sudden, of course, in true Pastor Sunday form, he comes flying out the door smiling, and somehow, actually what they said was something had gone wrong with paperwork, and we invite you back next week. And he came flying out, and they brought a camera, and they filmed him right in front of the police station, declaring, and like FSB or who a Secret Service pulled up to watch what was happening, and we were all under watch, and he got back into the vehicle. We drove straight to the church where there was a prayer meeting going on. It was just like the book of Acts, like Peter. He walks into the prayer meeting, and the church is just praying, and they went crazy. They went wild. And he got up on a chair and preached on faith. I never forgot that. But you don't get to that place of nerves of steel by a comfortable lifestyle. You get there by persecution, pain, and pressure. That's the missionary life. That's a life of an apostle. And so when we talk about handing out 3 red dots, we're trying to simulate for these people deadlines, pain, pressure, have to deliver, fear of failure, faced with your insecurities, challenges, fatigue, anything that a missionary leader would go through when you're going out there to reach people. Is that starting to make sense? Because what you find is, like even my own story leading up to discovering HMT, or before we launched it, you wouldn't believe what happened with my life. Unbelievable hell. And we have this joke about if you join our ministry, you're going to go through your hell before you. Every one of our team members has their hell story. And mine was especially vicious, to the point where I checked myself into counseling because I thought, I don't know that a person's mind can handle this kind of persecution and pressure. And she said she was surprised I was. And I remember being at a point of a 7-day period where I refused to eat, and I said, God, in 7 days, if you don't show up, I'm going to take my own life. This was right before launching HMT. And right on the 7th day, typical of Jesus to wait till the last moment, right on the 7th day, I have a dream, and I see the face of Jesus this close to my face. And all he says is, get up and continue your work. And maybe he wouldn't give that advice to someone else. You know, I thought he'd hug me or something. Maybe he wouldn't give that advice to someone else, but for me, that's, as a man, trying to know what my value is at this point, that's exactly what I needed to hear. And so I got up and began History Makers. So we're trying to create this environment, and you're being critiqued, you're being marked, you're having to meet deadlines, you're having to do things that you didn't know you could do. Just like, you know, this woman probably never thought she could lift a car up off the ground. But when her child was trapped under it, she was able to lift it up, pull her child out. You know that story. So it's his strength is perfected in our weakness. So Paul said, because of the exaltation and degree of revelation I was having, the Lord sent a thorn in my side, a messenger of Satan sent to buffet me. And he says, I prayed that I would be released from it. But the Lord just said, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is perfected in weakness, meaning only weakness is going to qualify you for supernatural power. Did you catch that? Only weakness is going to qualify you for that divine power. That's how apostles function in such levels of grace. They're so broken down, so weak. That's why God allows. God will even choreograph situations in your life that are meant to absolutely zero-base you. I'm leery of working with anybody that can't show me their scars, that can't show me their History Makers experience. And in weakness, his power is able to flow through you. So literally what HMT is an environment designed to weaken people where for them to even complete the training, they have to step into his power and his strength. So we use pressure points to do it. We use a little bit of sleeplessness, you know, some deadlines. We're not promoting sleep depravity, but you're going to lose a bit of sleep. You're not going to get your full 10 hours. But that's the heart of it. And what you find is when they then graduate the training and they go out to start something, and they find out, whoa, starting a business takes time. I'm sleeping at the office under the desk. I'm keeping all these different hours. And they're like, it's no problem. I've done HMT. I get it. They get it. They go to start a ministry and they have warfare going on and people persecuting. No problem. I know the power of a pressure point. And that's the dynamic that you are putting them through over those 3.5 days. And 3.5 days is just long enough to shift that mindset. And they come out rewired for high-performance living and high-performance Christianity. So the best thing we can do as trainers who work with facilitators and teams is to really do it with excellence. Prepare an environment that's going to pressure them into their greatness. That's why there's, you know, so does that make sense? If you study the lives of history makers or people who change the world, you'll find a few common denominators. One is they're either natural self-starters or learned self-starters. The second factor you'll find is they have strong character. The third factor, which is important, is the environment factor, which is they have learned how to leverage their environment to bring out the best in them. Also, they are dictators of environment. They create environment wherever they are. They're not thermometers, they are the thermostat. They are setting the temperature. But the most common denominator, the most common factor between any history maker, amazingly saved and unsaved, is that at some point in their life, they have gone through some kind of crisis or pressure, and they've overcome. And in their overcoming of that and not bowing to it, they developed a thick skin, a tenacity that sets them apart from the general mass. Does that make sense? Oprah Winfrey is one of them. You want to be a history maker? Check her schedule. Check her past and what she had to overcome. You think Joyce Meyer would be who she is today without the crisis she had to overcome? Abraham Lincoln failed at least 30 times in trying to enter politics. Thomas Edison failed 999 times. They're all people who are accustomed and acquainted to pressure and failure, and they leverage that to propel them into their success that makes them great. This is the undercurrent of history makers training. All of them. Michael Jordan was cut from the basketball team. They all have their story. Even when it comes to golfing, when you look at Tiger Woods, he was so good, and he went through a time where to get better, he had to adjust his grip. But in adjusting his grip, it made him play weak for a duration of time. And he actually allowed himself, knowing that if he could go through that weakness for a duration of time, once he mastered it, he would be very exceptional. Does that make sense? I told Pastor Sunday at this last anniversary that I want to adjust my preaching style. I only told him this. I didn't tell anybody else. And I said, I want to speak like you do in phrases. And I know you do it, Pastor Sunday, and I know Miles Monroe does it. And he said, yeah, it was Miles Monroe that he noticed doing that, and that adjusted his preaching style. And I said, I want to do it when I speak at the anniversary. Well, that's the worst place to do it. You're speaking at the Embassy of God anniversary in front of all these people, and your mentor is sitting there, and that's just the last place. But I knew I have to adjust my grip if I want to get better. I knew I could get up there, and maybe some preachers can identify with this a bit better, but I knew I could get up there and shout, yell, get everybody excited, and do that thing. I knew how to do that. But I wanted to I was too comfortable. I was too cocky. I wanted to go to the next level, and I knew the only way was to adjust my grip, even at the risk of stumbling a bit and even forcing the interpreter to struggle a bit. And so I just told Pastor Sunday, I'm going to do it, I'm going to try. And you know what? That first message, I wouldn't say it was one of my better ones, but I was adjusting my grip. And I'm telling you a very personal story now that I didn't think I would share. But I was scheduled to preach a second time during the anniversary. Maybe some of you remember that. And I was praying to God, and I said, Lord, that first one I didn't think went so well. And we got another one coming up. I want to keep adjusting my grid. And I realized, I said, Lord, I have pride in my life. I'm overly concerned about my own performance. And I said, God, do whatever you have to do to humble me. Do whatever you have to do to change me. But I'm going to adjust my grip. And I need you to deal with my heart. and whatever this is going to happen. And most of you don't know this. But that day was so challenging. I got car sick in the car with Pastor Sunday on the way to the service. And we had to stop the car, and I had to get it. I mean, it was embarrassing. I never get car sick like that. And there were guests in the vehicle, and It was just humiliating. The security had to get out with me as I walked outside. It made everybody wait. It was just humiliating for me. Maybe it wouldn't be for you, but for me it was. And even some things happened at that service that delayed everything, and you know, I almost wasn't even going to get to preach. And you remember that. You remember. And Pastor Sunday finally got up and said, "No, we need to get Derek up there." And I was so hungry at that point. I was sweating. I was low blood sugar. I was like, I got to preach. Please don't make me preach now. You know. And but God moved tremendously. God did, not Derek. God did. And if I've seen one thing over and over again, it's don't be afraid of pain, pressure, and the humility experiences. God will always be in the form of resurrection power at the other side of those things. Always. Always. So I hope you don't mind me sharing that kind of personal story with you. So we all go through it, I guess. I will never forget. It was so embarrassing. I tried to hide it. And then it came to the point where I was like, I'm going to throw up all over this man's car. And thank God he's so prophetic. He knew, and suddenly he told the driver to pull over. But that, I was the little kid that got car sick, you know. And so those things, God uses all kinds of things to work on us. And that's what HMT is all about, really humbling yourself. One last story before we give you your break or whatever is next. Philip Isaac's mother attended our History Makers training. And she was a very timid lady, terrified of being pointed out or anything like that. And she got a red dot. She got her first red dot, and I remember she just wept. You know, it was just... And she sat down, and the Lord told me, this was the one time the Lord told me to do a little intro before the workshop on the purpose and power of a red dot. And I explained how life gives you red dots. And you've got to learn to be accustomed to that. And you know, the example came of Jesus with 2 red dots, you know, in his hands. Life will throw red dots at you. And the proper way to use that, to grow from it. You know, her life just changed after that. Her personality changed, you remember that. Her confidence changed. She just couldn't stop thanking us for having this red dot thing in HMT. And you're going to find the same thing with these people, that it will produce just enough pressure for people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that's really the methodology or strategy behind the marking system, behind the red dot system. This is why we do it, and it works. There was a time where if they didn't finish their reading of their book, I still do this sometimes, it depends where we are, they had to stand at the wall during the workshop and read their book while the other workshop is going on. So they can't take notes, and they're going to have to do homework on that after. And in some cultures, people really struggle with that, especially in North America. They see it as shaming or punishing or that kind of a thing. So I actually don't use it in some places, especially if there are a lot of older people, seniors, or if I'm in a very conservative religious church. We just won't use that part. We might just give a red dot or something like that. So again, it comes down to being flexible. Do we want to throw a stumbling block, such a big stumbling block for the group that we have just trouble? Or can you get by with removing standing at the wall and use the rest of the pressure point system? So, was this helpful? It's the spirit of it, you know. Well, we're going to, what time is the next workshop, Philip? After lunchtime, that's right. Lunch is at 2? And then we'll go into our next workshop. And excellent. Enjoy your break. Thank you.